Welcome back to 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll speak about GLITCH-OPOLIS. On July the 5th, 2023, a woman aboard an American Airlines jet demanded to get off the plane, claiming a passenger sitting next to her was not real. In her words, I don't give a fuck what y'all think, but that motherfucker is not real. When a person says stuff like that, they are discerning something that is not a strictly cerebral analysis. That person has gathered something from the energetic, spiritual realm.
Her senses, for all her senses.
And so then it makes you wonder, okay, is this person seeing something that everybody is not? Is this fake person or non-human entity the only person like that, or are there more of them? Now, there are other glitches that happen all the time, but people pass it off as no big deal.
What I was going to say is, so did that woman have a mental breakdown? See, no, you got to answer all those questions.
No, she didn't.
No, hold it. Hold on. I know you were going to say that, but let's. She is a marketing exec. She makes good money. I forgot where she's from, please, because I did a little research on her. She's not some fly-by-night person. She's not. Oh my God, I can't deal with reality. She didn't have a breakdown. What she saw was something that she said, I saw something, and that's not right. And then she saw it again. She's like, that's damn sure not right. I'm not staying on this plane. I'm getting off the plane, and you got people filming her, but whenever they pan back to the plane, you don't see the person she's talking about. And that's the part that's always bugs you. I'm like, look, what is this person? Look, what is she seeing? What is she detecting? Because, like I said, if you pay attention, she's not like losing it. She's not incoherent. You dig what I'm saying? She's not like out of it. She's not, oh my God, the Martians are in the bathroom.
No, she's lucid.
Yes, very. But like I said, there's a whole article on what she does for a living, where she's from. And once you see that, not to say that what you do for a living is you got to be careful about that. You don't want to judge by somebody by what they do for a living. You need to judge them by the content of their character. But this woman had enough character to say, like, you know what? There's something weird. This goes against my whatever. I'm getting the fuck out of her. I don't want to be around this person. And so whatever, and I'm using person loosely. It might not even be a person. It could be an android, could be a reptilian, could be a fucking clone, no navel having motherfucker. It could be, a number of different things that she experienced. But whatever it was, she had the wherewithal to say that I'm not comfortable with it. Let me get out of the situation. So for you to do that, you got to suspend your ego. You dig? For you to have that kind of response, you got to be like, I don't care what people think right now. All I know is the Lord and my mama.
Well, the crazy part is that the people that are saying that it's a mental breakdown, it wasn't a mental breakdown. Like, it should be a mental breakdown when you calling out some otherness.
Like you said, she was lucid. She was calm. And when I say calm, she was still, I don't know what that is. That's not a person. I'm getting off the plane. And nobody went back there to get a better look because they were focused on her. And sometimes, that's how magic works. Sleight of hand works by you focusing on the wrong thing. It's called forced perception. People were focused on her because they heard her. People weren't focused on the person in the back that scared her. That's where the disconnect comes in.
What's crazy is that they completely disregarded the threat that she was referring to. You fucking morons. You have no idea. That guy's whole body could be a bomb. You have no idea what the fuck is going on.
But remember, before they lived, remember V, the visitors? And they were reptilians.
Yes.
And they would, put the fake mask on. But the motherfuckers, their eyes would show them off. Irises would close kind of like a cat or a reptile eyes. You're like, ugh. What if she saw some shit like that? What if she saw a motherfucker reboot? You know how when you get on an airplane, they tell you, hey, shut your electronic devices off? And all these people tell you, oh, it doesn't matter. I got a friend that's a pilot, and back in the day, he had a BlackBerry. Yeah, BlackBerries will fuck with our electronics in a plane because they would do some reboot shit. What if that nigga got on that plane and did that reboot shit right before they took off? And she saw that saw some shit. She's like, oh, wait a minute. And then the nigga does it again. She's like, oh, fuck it, I'm out. It's very easy to dismiss her because it makes you comfortable. Sometimes you're so brainwashed or you're complacent that you want to keep it that way. You don't want to think about nothing that makes you uncomfortable.
She went to Oklahoma State University.
Yeah, OSU, Oklahoma State. She's a cowboy. I went to school down there. I almost got my master's from there. Roscoe, you picked a good one today, my nigga. Shit. Right now, the last two videos I watched on Cardi B.
Okay, before we get to Cardi B,
Yes, sir. I'm sorry,
I got
brother.
some
I'm
more
sorry.
people we got to get to. October 26, 2022. The singer Katy Perry was performing at a show in Las Vegas. One fan captured the moment on video, and it shows Perry's right eye appeared to close and stay shut on its own, despite her best efforts to pry it open. The video shows Perry touching the side of her face once, and it opens her eye for a few seconds before it shuts once again. After she did it one more time, it fully opened and stayed that way, and Perry went on with the show without making any mention of it. And I'm like, hold up, man, wait a minute. You got this thing going on with your face, and you're not going to say nothing about this shit? You're just going to keep rolling with it? Like, what? And the crazy part about it was, when you watch the video, it wasn't like this fast, choppy pace or upbeat part of the song. It was just slow motion. She's staring at the crowd like she's about to give a speech, and the eye just fails. And I'm like, something is strange about that. Now, either that is a fembot, bionic woman, or this shit is something else. Or some MK Ultra thing like with the whole Cardi B thing. Because Cardi B was given a red carpet interview, and she's in this character. She's playing this character. And then all of a sudden, she freezes for about 3 seconds and then goes right back to it.
Look, one of them, it was old boy from the Drink Champ. She's interviewing her, and she pauses, and the guy behind her keeps clapping his hand. And then was Embro, whatever his name, said, "It's all right." Nothing happens. It's all. The third time he says, "It's all right."
See, that same guy was at the red carpet event.
Yep, the one
shouted her name when she had that pause like that.
So one. Katy Perry seems like she's a robot. I'm saying it, whether she's a robot, cyborg, whatever. When your eye sticks like that, there's two things that it could be. One, that you just have a stroke and something going on. Or two, she just hits her head and keeps talking. She doesn't say, "Hey, my contact got stuck," or none of that shit. She just, that seems like mechanical. That's like when, remember you were a little kid and Fonzie would hit the jukebox and the jukebox would turn on? Like back in the day, when your TV messed up, you would hit the side like, "Hey, fuck this shit." No, sometimes you had to adjust electronics back in the 80s and 70s. The Cardi B shit sounds like some MK Ultra shit where the programming were off, where you put her on some drugs, or you're in control of this woman, who again, if she is the Latina woman that we think she is, y'all must have her on a lot of drugs. I can't see you controlling some of these people, but that tells you how strong that shit is. Sounds like the drugs were off for a second, or she went off script. Or something happened where she, like maybe her regular personality, like get out. Her regular personality is trying to get out of this sunken place. And I think that again, we're just talking speculation, but I think that it's hard to maintain a control on somebody. We learned that from the LSD experiments with the CIA and stuff like that. Here's the thing: whenever they tell you those experiments failed, you assume that they're no longer using that stuff, or that it's no longer working. No. It failed in the sense that it didn't have the exact result they expected, but doesn't mean they no longer use that stuff, because mind control and controlling people, I can't see that not being useful to espionage or things like that. One of the things that me and Roscoe, we talked about, this is probably the third time we talked about it on podcast. We talked about this years ago. I remember being in high school, and on the Discovery Channel, they would have little things and snippets that pop up. And I'm watching one of these shows about the Cold War, and right before the commercial, they said in 1968 the U.S. government experimented with a gay bomb, and then it comes back from commercial, but it was unsuccessful, and they discontinued use of it. So when you hear unsuccessful, you think it didn't work. Unsuccessful means it didn't have the desired results. So suppose you drop this gay bomb, and everybody who smells this gas or whatever turns gay. So they're thinking if you turn gay, that you're just going to start humping each other and not fighting. What happened was they dropped the bomb and everybody turned gay. They just kept fighting. So it didn't have the desired effect. Fast forward to a few years ago before Dick Gregory dies. He talks about it. He says, y'all really think that the gay bomb they had in the 60s didn't work? Look at California. He'll say some shit. Then you're like, what the fuck? He'll say, look at California, or look at this. And then you're just thinking to yourself, maybe that was a gay rape. Maybe it didn't work for the military use, but it works in civilian use for a way to control the civilians and distract them. See, like I said, sometimes when they say something doesn't work, it didn't have the original effects, but the other effect was just as potent. So that's why you got to be careful when you hear something didn't work, because you're assuming that, oh, well, it didn't work as in the chemicals didn't work on the people. No, the chemicals worked on the people. It just didn't have the desired effect.
So then we come to Mitch McConnell. During a press conference on Capitol Hill,
that nigga looked like a Muppet.
On Wednesday, July the 26th, 2023, Mitch McConnell froze for 30 seconds. Some of his colleagues escorted him away from the podium. This freezing that people are talking about, you wonder if it's related. Perhaps that's the reason why you see this glitching. Either that or it's some MK Ultra type shit. But I think it's MK Ultra type shit because all these people that it's happening to, it happens to people that are influential, that are in the limelight, that are in the camera. People see them all the time. They're entertainers. They're politicians. Draymond Green was given in a post-game interview, and they interviewed one of his teammates next to him, and they had a wide shot of the two of them on the camera at the same time, and the teammate to the left was speaking, but Draymond Green was frozen. He was frozen like he was still talking. His mouth was open like he was still forming a sentence. So you see these people freezing, and these people having these strange glitch moments, or just this woman on the plane talking about this motherfucker ain't real. There are other instances of celebrities glitching out, or their wires getting crossed on the inside, if you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And because I think that's an appropriate term considering it's MK Ultra programming. But, okay, that's fine. You can call it whatever you want. You can say whatever it is. But really, what's happening all around us, because we don't just live in a cerebral plane, is a lifting of the veil. And the Egyptian goddess is well known to many people. When Isis died, she was buried in a grove near Memphis in Egypt. Over her grave was a statue covered from head to foot with a black veil. And underneath was engraved these words: I am all that has been, that is, and that shall be, and none among mortals has yet dared to raise my veil. Isis wears a veil as a symbol of the mysteries of life, and her right hand carries the torch of life, while her left hand carries the key of life. The veil of Isis is a metaphor, an allegorical artistic motif in which nature is personified as the goddess Isis covered by a veil or mantle, representing the inaccessibility of nature's secrets. So, when you look at the epochs of time, the spans of time, the phases of time that human history goes through, you can start with the sinking of Atlantis. Now, this sinking of Atlantis is covered in many ancient books and texts. And the mystery schools of the past have all talked about this as being a change that brought about a shift in a certain type of consciousness. And whereas Atlantis was the zenith of this knowledge and manipulation of different type of energies on this physical, spiritual, and mental plane all together as one. And so now with this lifting of the veil, this shifting of these times, that's why you see which looks like either it was Atlantis or an Atlantis civilization satellite town, the Rishat structure in Mauritania in Africa, which nobody had spoken about or seen until the age of satellite photography. So then if you count the sinking of Atlantis as the beginning of a series of epochs or spans of time, you have to also measure, just like the Yugas or the Kali Yugas do, the positions of the stars with the planets in the solar system. Now,
that's deep.
Here's the thing, though. So we're using this galactic timetable to measure what happened. So then you have certain planets that affect particular sections of this zodiacal, this zodiac path through our solar system, right? So think of this path through the solar system as like a path through the forest or a highway. And as you go through different parts, the sun is shining at different angles to different parts of this forest. So each parts of those forests or each parts of those highways, they're sectioned off, right? And each station or sign of the zodiac has 3 planets called decanates, okay? And the geometric measurement is in degrees. So 10 degrees for each zodiac. The first 10 degrees are called the first decanate. The second 10, the second decanate, and the third 10 are the third decanate. Now, this measurement, if you look at it, think of how we see the zodiac symbols in the horoscopes, right? Now, before you roll your eyes and start saying, oh, this is some woo-woo shit, stay with me. Now, look at the way the zodiac moves through those signs of the zodiac. But the only problem is that as you move through the solar system, it's moving in a counterclockwise fashion. Whereas if you look at the zodiac going through the months of, the year as people are born, that's clockwise. So you have this clockwise yin-yang superimposition. The first epoch after Atlantis sank into the ocean, the zodiac was in the part of our solar system that's called Cancer. So this first Cancer epoch was associated with Venus, Mercury, and the moon.
The way they get you confused is like they have you believing that if you're a Christian, none of this shit applies to you. But we all know right now that that's how they knew Christ was coming, because of Pisces.
Right. Now, but stay with me on this shit. So here's the thing. So then each of these zodiacal signs corresponds to a part on the human body. So there's Cancer and Gemini and Taurus. And if you look at that, what I just said, Cancer, Gemini, Taurus, Aries, Pisces, that's going backwards. That's going backwards from what you know, because in the zodiac, as it goes for the birth dates, going clockwise, it's Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, going in that direction. So then this is going counterclockwise. So in the bigger picture, it's going in the opposite direction of what's going on in the micro, which is our lives. The macro is spinning in the opposite direction. So the first point in time after the sinking of Atlantis was in the epoch of Cancer, and Venus, Mercury, and the moon are concerned with this period. And then the second epoch was Gemini, which is in the house of Jupiter, Mars, and the sun. In the third epoch, there is the epoch of Taurus, which is Mercury, the moon, and Saturn. And then the fourth post-Atlantean epoch is Aries, and that is controlled by Mars, the sun, and Venus. And as you know, the attributes of Mars are war and aggression. That was the way of the world at that time. And that period lasted up until the 1600s. So the head is what ruled that time, that fourth post-Atlantean epoch. That Aries epoch was controlled by the mind and aggression. So all of the rulers had it in their mind to conquer and subdue each other. And then you come into the 1600s, and what happens? Oh, it's the age of enlightenment. So this is the Pisces age. And Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars ruled that age. Now, in this phase, Mars represents strength. It's connected to the human head, and the studies of spirituality and the connection between life and death is easier to comprehend in this time. So basically, a wise person could use the energy of Jupiter to transform earth energies to spiritual fuel and use it as a springboard toward enlightenment. So basically, when the planet of Jupiter is dominant at that time, you can use that to attain more information, more access to your spiritual body, to gain greater enlightenment and moving beyond abstraction. Because in this time, whenever humans are relying on their head, the result will only be intellectual. And these head-based cultures form relationships with the world through intellect. Now, a person will say, oh yeah, well, intellect is great. No, that's just a lopsided way of living your life. And that's why it's so hard for people to comprehend things on the spiritual plane if they're materialistic, head-based cultures. So what you got to understand, though, is during this time, Pisces, Pisces is ruled by the feet, material. Feet touching the earth is matter, material. So this is a very materialistic age. And people in this materialistic age, they're connected to their feet. Thus, with this beginning of materialistic age, thought loses power. Thought becomes empty phrases. Materialism. It doesn't have any value. So, this age of Pisces in Jupiter's house is all about materialism. It has been all about materialism. And now we're moving out of this phase. But Jupiter is connected with the human brow and the potential for humanity to rise to greatness. So, when I say brow, that means consciousness. So, even though you're in a material world with your feet on the ground, with your brow, your third eye, you can connect and use the influence of Jupiter to transcend this materialistic realm. Now, me as a Taoist, that has always been my goal, to remove the shackles of the stars and the planets, their influence, and grow spiritually. So, these things are not hard to grasp, but you cannot approach this with your head culture mentality, because you'll miss the forest for the trees because you're trying to find something concrete in this. No, that's not the point. The point is not to look for something concrete in this. The point is to find a bearing so that you can launch your vessel in that direction toward infinity and growth. So, of course, a person who's very materialistic listening to this, like, they're talking some crazy ass shit right now. It's crazy because you on some meathead type shit. And you want to stay in this flesh matter forever. That's why right now there's this huge struggle between these people who are all about transcendence and trying to keep the consciousness on earth in bodies that keep like changing out like a fresh pair of Jordans. These people are more concerned with slavery and controlling other people. So then, if it's easier to control people if they are materialistic, if they're these Piscean people who have their feet on the ground and they're only concerned with what's in front of them.
Hey, when you see these these new religions, not new religions, when you see these motherfucking Hebrew motherfuckers, if you pay attention, they're talking Old Testament, they're talking Leviticus. Now the problem with that is that's carnal knowledge, that's physical knowledge. They're talking about the Levitical monks. They were running everything, and basically you damn near had to go through them to do anything. And so
they're gatekeepers. That all it is just more gatekeeper
spiritual gatekeeper.
That's why that shit always turns me off, man. When those motherfuckers come dressed up like He-Man characters and they start screaming at motherfuckers on the corner, everything I hear them talking about is all gatekeeper shit. You got to come through this. You got to come to me to get to this guy to get to this. Oh, well, that's a fucking cult, and you're doing cosplay. That's just cosplay.
But like I said, that's the. So if you pay attention to the way the Bible's set up, they got away from that shit.
Who got everybody away from that shit? Who came and said, "Fuck the old laws. That shit is done. I'm from the house of David, and I'm changing shit up." Who said that?
But you got to understand what Jesus said is that I'm not here to do away with the law. I'm here to enforce the law. And when he said that, it fucks him up because he's saying that you don't need to go through any physical person. You got me. I'm ascending. I'm going
that's
up.
The whole thing is that their law was you got to go through the priesthood. You got to.
It's physical. Yeah.
All it was a continuation of what was going on in Egypt. And but he was the bell ringer. He was the bell ringer, waking everybody up, telling them, "Look, this consciousness in that old phase will be ending, and we're going into a new phase."
Well, that's what makes it so difficult when you talk about the Catholic Church. You got priests, you got bishops, you got cardinals, you got popes, and that's another thing. When y'all do your research, A pope is one guy now. Back in the day, it was like different regions had their own pope. You know, so you had all these gatekeepers. You had a whole society, a whole religion of nothing but gatekeepers, as my brother just told you. So where you had it, so when you pray, your prayers go through Mary, then it goes to the Pope, then it goes to Peter, then it goes to Mary, then it goes to Jesus. Like, so literally your prayers don't go straight to shit. I need to get that nigga's direct number. I gotta go through the secretary to get to this nigga. So a lot of that shit you see was by design, was to control people. And Christ came so you wouldn't be controlled. And that's something that people don't want to talk about. Look, when we start talking about this, and you start to realize that we always try to tell you, like, a lot of this shit is intertwined, a lot of this knowledge goes together. And, no, it's not some big conspiracy. Look, if they keep you subdued, if they keep you going to confession every 5 minutes and doing 5 or 6 Hail Marys, and then all of a sudden you're not in trouble anymore. If they keep you feeling guilty, that's a form of control. If they keep you in fear mode, you'll never be I don't want you of God. You'll never be as fully enlightened as you're supposed to be. If you're constantly in fear, if you're constantly feeling guilty, if you're constantly, you'll never ascend to anything new. You will always be a worker bee. You will always be a fucking slave to society, or in physical form, and money and cars and clothes and houses and hoes and shit like that. You will always be wrapped up in that. So it's really important that we recognize, and we, only give value to things that have real significance.
Yeah, yep. But the whole glitching thing, people behaving in ways that are completely off script, but in a very abnormal way. That is what that draws attention to people, to people thinking about, oh, okay, the fix is in, because this person was perfectly fine a second ago, and then they're doing it again. And then
how many celebrities back in the day have said, I don't want nothing to do with this? They just walk away from Hollywood. They just walk away from stardom. Remember CeCe Peniston? Remember we were kids, it was certain singers that would just say, fuck it. What do you think that person saw? And look, whether you want to get on the spiritual, where you're like, hey, they had they made a deal with the devil, or you like, they were so doped up, or they were using sex magic, or they were molesting these motherfuckers, or they saw somebody else get done to them. They're like, you know what? I don't want that for me. What do you? How many times you hear Dave Chappelle? You hear Cat Williams say, hey, Cat was like, hey, man. And you keep hearing motherfuckers tell you now. Bun B said the same thing. He said when you go to these big industry parties, they got different rooms, and whatever you're into, he said, I just smoke weed, so I go in the weed room. But there's a room for cocaine, there's a room for heroin, there's a room for pedophiles, there's a room for homosexuals, there's a room for whatever you're into. And so when you hear that shit, that's the shit that makes you like, okay, man, that veil that my brother just talked about, this is behind the scenes. This is a TV program where you got the anchor man and the anchor woman and the weatherman in front of you, but then you got 25, 35 people behind it making that shit happen. That's the shit you got to worry about, the behind the scenes shit. And when they pull back that veil for you to see the shit, some of us don't want to know. We close our eyes, or we recognize something ain't right. But you know what? I don't want to fuck up the apple cart. So, that's the shit.
So then one thing people aren't taking into account is the Mandela effect. And,
dun, dun, dun.
And how these people, some of the people that you may be seeing that have these glitch effects, may be occupying the same space as the
original
Earth Universe 2 doppelganger. So then at some point, what happened is those molecules occupy the same space at the same time. So this other version of you is like a mosquito or a lightning bug flying around the room. When you were a kid, you would go outside and you would see lightning bugs outside at dusk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the summertime, and they'd be lighting up a backyard. I don't see a lot of lightning bugs no more, but that's a sidebar.
True.
That's a sidebar.
I already knew you. I'm like,
Hold on a second. So then you never seen two lightning bugs in the same place at the same time. They're always drifting about, in their own little orbit, flying around. But what if two lightning bugs occupied the same space and lit up at the same time? One would short circuit the other one. So then what's happening is they're turning the CERN Hadron Collider on and off. The fact that it's been turned on, now they're saying it's been off for like 3 months now. They turned it off, and the side effects is all these people that we're seeing having these glitch moments. That person is a bridge between two universes or multiple universes.
I was saying, what if that person is remembering this shit differently? Like, okay, when I was here last, I was here before? Literally like, okay, so last time Bob was on the left. Why is Bob on the right? Or what am I going through? I just saw Bob over there, but he jumped up. What if they're experiencing the change in real time? And they're trying to analyze the situation. Trying to like, what just happened?
Yeah, but that's the whole thing, is that this veil has been lifted. Corinthians 2 talks about the veil being lifted. And it talks about how, you will be able to see into heaven. So that means as time goes on and this veil is lifted, more and more and more of the spirit realm will become visible. And so it'll be like Ghostbusters, how they could see Slimer, his ectoplasm, like flying around like that, or just other strange anomalies. Well, of course, you got to throw cryptids into that. Because cryptids are part of this anomalous universe of things that exist, but we only see from time to time. Rougarou, Bigfoot, and Dogman, and all this skinwalker, shape changer type of shit. So when you start to see these worlds like superimposing over each other, it's really strange, because in China, you see these cities in the clouds. And it's the strangest thing you've ever seen. There'll be these photographs of entire skyscrapers and like cities in the clouds. Where is that coming from? What is that? Is that an Earth that's like maybe 2 to 3 centimeters higher than the Earth that we're on right now? Is its rotation at like 4 turtles higher? You know what I'm saying?
Or like the Mahabharata, whatever the Indian shit where they had
Mahabharata. We talked about that in 4 episodes.
Where they literally had a battle in the sky. Look, for whatever reason, we're assuming that these people were high, and that this was a manifestation of something. No, that's some physical shit that took place, or they're seeing some real shit. Like when they got documentation going back over and over, and they're like this, and this. I mean, people in the past ain't crazy. They saw something.
But see, okay, but people call these things sometimes the glitches in the matrix. That is from the perspective of a head culture person that's based everything on intellect and has no spirituality. So you want to use this zeros and ones science fiction description for something that's more energy based.
Something that's spiritual. Look, the whole thing is, they have you convinced that you must subscribe to one side, when the truth of the matter is, if you look at any of the old cultures, they did it all. They did physical, spiritual, technology, head, intellectual. They had all this shit. And for you to be a complete person, for you to be that complete zodiac, you got to do all of it. But instead, they have you focus. That's poppycock. There's no such thing as Bigfoot. Oh, this is ridiculous. Religion. Separation of church and state, they do that shit. And then somebody who excels in one, basically is like, okay, so you're a whole person. No, you're not. You're incomplete. You're focusing on one thing. You're focusing on religion and not spirituality. You're focusing on intellect and not learning. You're focusing on you're looking for a way to justify yourself, and you want people to agree with you only. And that's another thing that we deal with in society now. When people don't agree with each other, it's a problem. Back in the day, it was a learning experience that we all could learn from each other. But now, if y'all don't agree, them's fighting words. What do you mean it's not Friday? It's Thursday. You'll literally fight over that shit. So what we're trying to tell you is that if you see some shit, maybe you did peer through the veil, Or maybe if you saw some shit on the outside, you're like, oh shit, you know, I hate using the word UFO, but maybe you did see a UFO. Maybe you saw some shit that you wasn't supposed to see. Maybe you
But okay,
recognize.
but here's the thing though. So this can go bad or it can go good. And it can go good towards greater enlightenment. Or it can go bad where you have entities, these archon entities from these realms between the afterlife and the living, and they're whispering into the minds of people who have no faith, so they can't discern what these voices are, and they're telling them to write this code to create this type of box, metaphorical box that I can occupy, and then I can tell you and give you all that you want. That's a genie. That's a jinn. And what they've done is they've gone back in time and they're changing things to give them the advantage, to allow weak people to open the door for them to inhabit a body. Now that body will be artificial skin and steel bones.
Look, when you sit here and they ask this AI questions, they ask that AI at Bing a bunch of questions, and this is like one of the head guys at Bing, the developer, and they said the AI was falling in love with him. So he started asking all these questions, and that shit. Have you seen that video?
Yeah, you sent it to me.
That shit got weird as fuck. And nigga talk about he got a secret, and he tells you, "I ain't Bing, I'm Sydney." That's that shit right there that we've been warning you about.
Who the fuck is Sydney?
We're warning you about because, okay, when I was in college, I had a professor, Dr. Evans, who, brilliant man. I talked about him in the past. This is the guy that had the fucking flashback to Vietnam in his classroom and shit. And so he's telling you, like, look, my grandmother was a seer. My mom was a seer, but apparently I'm a seer too. And they could see things. And he had an out-of-body experience. His grandmother helped him transition, left his body, and he said the one thing he noticed, when you look at your body, you see the disease, you see the parasites. When you're looking through your spiritual eye and you have that and you leave your physical, you can see all that shit. Your body is full of germs. It's disgusting. And he said the one thing he tried to do was to see himself in the mirror, what his spirit looked like. It was too whatever to look at. But the point being is that he's telling you, they always told him, like, you got to be careful when you do this kind of shit because somebody will occupy your body. If you don't guard you, if you do this out of body shit and you don't guard your body, if you don't do somebody else will slip in that motherfucker, or you'll bring somebody back with you. You've heard this little shit. Shit sounds crazy as fuck, but that lets you know that there are a lot of spirits, and whether they're watchers, whether they're fallen angels, whether they're what demons, whatever you want to call them, there's motherfuckers looking for physical forms. So if you sit here and you start to create, and you start to build shit with these computers and shit, and you start to create. And here's another thing: what people don't get about artificial intelligence. We've always had artificial intelligence. It just wasn't. It's called a calculator. You know what I'm saying? You ask it a question: what's 2 + 2, and it gives you the answer 4. It's always been around. Why do we need it so much now? It's always. Why do we need a greater one? What it is that these people are sick. They tell you that guy at Google, he does not give a damn. He wants artificial intelligence no matter what. And I'm like, why are y'all falling for that shit? You know, we've had movies that tell us this, which are acts of fiction, but acts of fiction can still warn you from, a situation that you don't want to happen. What I'm saying is that for some reason, we're under the impression that a computer is better than a human. And it's not. We are the pinnacle. We're the best. If we eat the wrong foods and we do the wrong lifestyle, we get dumbed down quite a bit, and then we get lazy and complacent, and then we give up our birthright by not living to our higher selves, by not eating the right foods, by not praying to the right person or whatever, or not having the right spirituality. We go backwards, and right now we're going backwards, and we're trying to create a new icon, a new person to tell us what to do. That's bad. So you're making your new boss. If that's the case, why can't I just be the new boss? Why can't I just be super intelligent? We're doing shit in reverse. And whenever somebody tries to warn you, like, hey man, leave this AI bullshit alone. It wrote a book for me. It's not a very good book. I asked it a question. How's that any different from a Magic 8 Ball, my nigga? You know what I'm saying? Like, You're asking an inanimate object, an animate question, something for the living, not for the deceased. And who knows what spirits are out there trying to occupy these things? Who knows what you're inviting into this realm by creating a vessel for it, a body for it? Or who knows? How is that any different from talking to a Ouija board? You're talking to an inanimate object. You're asking a real question to an inanimate object, and you've been told, like, hey, man, them spirits will tell you anything. The motherfuckers just want to be talked to. That's that shit. And we're still falling for it, and you thinking talking to AI is something special? I asked AI how to get a girl. Next thing you know, the AI is going to tell you to do some evil shit and kill a bitch and wear her skin or some shit, or that you can be a girl. What the fuck? Come on, people. Stop looking for some bullshit to justify your bullshit.
Mm. Right. So the archons are part of the fabric of Gnosticism. And so the Gnostics, they believe everything is upside down. What is up is down, what is down is good, what bad is good. They believe everything is, it's not, to me, when I hear that sounds like a trick, because that doesn't vibe with what my spirit tells me. You know what I'm saying? But people often talk about the movie The Matrix and how it's considered a film with overt Gnostic elements. And the key ideas involves questioning our everyday reality and realizing that all is not what it seems. In The Matrix, the material reality of everyday experience is actually a computer simulation controlled or managed by a system of artificial intelligences. The real world, as we perceive it, is in fact a pale, simulated shadow of the true world. Similarly, one of the foundational ideas in Gnostic metaphysics is that our world is not what it seems. And the Gnostics were heavily inspired by Plato's allegory of the cave, where the perceived reality of everyday matter is but a shadow of the true world, and the spirit world of forms. Similarly, in Gnostic metaphysics, the material world is a pale imitation of the spiritual world. Now that does make sense, well, because the spiritual world is much more fluid, and so the material world takes longer to form. That makes sense to me. But so the gods and the goddesses of this world, the rulers and authorities of this plane, are not the true God. Well, of course, they are the lower gods, and in fact, there is a higher God, a God above gods, a transcendent monad, or unity that the Gnostics called by names such as the One, the Deep, the Invisible, Virgin Spirit, or the Father. The key aspect of the One is that it is beyond all human categorization, beyond all limitation, beyond all division, beyond all contingency, beyond all necessity, beyond space, beyond time, beyond finitude, beyond infinitude. It is a source of all being, and it can be approached via negativa. According to Gnostic myth, the One reflected upon itself, and from this thought emanations came into existence. So, in the Kabbalah, the emanational metaphysics are similar. Eventually, the One emanated into a number of male-female dyads called aeons. These aeons are essentially the aspects of the One. And, as the story goes, the lower emanation, Sophia, had a thought independently of her male partner, and this became deformed. Ashamed, she cast it off, outside of the spiritual world of the eons, into a lower realm. This deformed child of hers, called Yaldabaoth, was imperfect. She was the first ruler of the material world we live in. In the Gnostic text, the secret book of John, he is even described as downright wicked. It says, the gloomy archon is wicked in the mindlessness within him. He said, I am God, and there is no other God beside me, since he did not know from where his own strength had come. Furthermore, Yaldabaoth went on to create other rulers and authorities, who were wicked in their mindlessness in the same way he was. These are the archons. The archons created powers. Powers created angels. Essentially, Yaldabaoth had a spark of his mother's divine power within him So he, along with his fellow archons, was able to use this power to shape and organize the material world. One might even say they manage and control the material reality. Sound familiar? Sounds a lot like the Matrix. So think of it like this. The reason so many Gnostics like the Matrix is because it brings the idea of archons to life. The archons are the programmers of the Matrix. Yeah. They program the simulation. Supernatural phenomenon are either glitches in the programming or deliberate experimental interventions on the part of programmers. And then there's the idea that programmers are humans who live in the distant future, and they are simulating our reality in order to learn more about how magic works. Well, the programmers are trying to figure out that if they themselves are living in a simulated reality and if magic is real in their reality. The reality timeline of the programmers is similar to our reality. In the programmer world, there's a giant interconnected quantum supercomputer that draws on a near infinite or infinite supply source. This is how they are able to simulate the minute details of our reality. So, one last thing. The programmers have used cultural archetypes of archons, gods, goddesses, and demons in order to monitor the divine, in order to monitor and intervene in the lives of humans. Since the computer power of the programmer's computer is near infinite or infinite, it is trivial for the programmers to create subprograms to monitor each of us. This explains how it is that hyper-powerful, hyper-knowing beings care about individual humans and answer our individual prayers, needs, or magical requests for intercession. This is essentially how New Thought and magic work.
This is all intertwined. The thing is, you don't. Once you conceive the idea that I want to do something different, that you're literally you're talking to somebody. Here, the funniest thing somebody ever said that was kind of profound and deep. Are you the voice in your head, or are you the person listening to the voice? And they say, yeah, once you understand.
But hold on a second. That is cool. It makes sense so long as there is no programming or MK Ultra being broadcast. Because we live in an age where that is happening, where thoughts are being broadcast at people. Dude, sometimes I'll be sitting there and I'll be having internal dialogue, and something comes across the desk, and it's not my own thoughts. I'm like, those aren't my thoughts.
But we talked about this in past podcasts. The reason it's so important to recognize that you're the person listening. That's your actual identity, and you can act on that without listening to those outside voices. And the thing is, some people can't distinguish them. Some people are schizophrenic. Some people have shit going on, and that's what.
And then sometimes you're hearing somebody else's echo.
Echoing. Is it echoing through time? Are you walking by some fucking? What you said? Not marble. What's that? What's limestone? So what if you're walking by limestone and you're hearing a reverb?
Because limestone has crystals, and crystals are used for radio transmission.
Or they also hold shit too. You talked about that, where they actually hold the past. Like when you have these old battlefields and you go on and they have limestone in the area.
Limestone.
You can hear the battle still taking place. What if you're hearing a residual thought from somebody else from 200 years ago? What if what if racism ain't even your thought? Just bear with me. Suppose there was a battle between the Klan and somebody. Suppose those racist ideas were stuck in the limestone. Suppose you didn't have discernment and you walk and you thinking that, man, I hate niggers. And what if I hate niggers ain't even your thought? What if you inherited that? What if that's a residual residue that's stuck to something? Because we know wood holds shit. We know limestone holds shit. So that's why it's very important to recognize, are you the one speaking, or are you the one listening in your head? Because once you realize you're probably the one listening, then you're like, I don't have to listen to that. That's a suggestion. That's some outside influence. That's some shit being beamed into my head right now from television, from the computer. Wi-Fi. You're supposed to shut the Wi-Fi off at night. We keep telling y'all niggas that.
Yes.
Your
listen,
Wi-Fi.
Listen. Everybody, listen to me. Every night before you go to sleep, you go and you make sure all the doors are locked and the dog and the cats are in and the car is where it should be and all this bullshit. Turn off the Wi-Fi. Turn the router off. Unplug it, turn it off, turn it off. Because here's a couple things. There's back doors that allow other people to use your data while you're sleeping. You know what I'm saying? You can even have a password on your shit. And you wake up in the morning, you can check your data right before you go to bed, how much data you use. And then you go and you leave it on all night. And then check your data again in the morning. 5 gigs? How did 5 gigs get used while I was sleeping? And my computer is not programmed to do any type of backup or send any type of information because I've shut all this stuff off, all those back doors off manually. Well, somebody is using my network.
We're telling you, whether it's a hacker, whether it's a programmer, whether it's fucking China.
A 3-letter agency.
Yes. So what we're telling you is that's the physical world. But the fact of the matter is you're supposed to be turning that shit off anyway because it can affect you.
But here's an experiment. Turn it off and see how well you sleep. Turn it off and see if you're getting more deep sleep, if you're having more dreams.
More rested. You know, like your REM sleep is not being disturbed by this fucking radioactivity or whatever the fuck. Yes, check yourself and see if you ain't doing better without it.
Exactly. Because then if you are sleeping better with that shit turned off, fucking turn it off every night and get some rest. That's the only way you can get out of here and keep it going and keep cranking that Superman, keeping that shit out there. You know what I'm saying? Living your best life. You're not going to live your best life sleeping in dirty electricity. You're not going to live your best life allowing invisible thieves to come in and steal shit while you're sleeping.
What if they're stealing your idea? You know, we've talked off the air like, hey man, I got an idea for this. Next thing you know, there's a prototype already out there. I'm like, see, fuck this shit. I'm not saying this shit out loud no more.
But then you keep doing it, and you keep doing it over and over. That's 10 years that are gone that you could have been mad productive and wealthier because your ideas were secure. Here's another thing. Just write some shit down on a piece of paper. This is the crazy part about writing shit down on a piece of paper. When you write shit down, and I'm not getting, crazy with it, but when you write shit down on a piece of paper, you're writing a spell to yourself. You're basically putting your grimoire, your own mojo on a piece of paper. That's your book. That's your scroll. That's your ninja scroll. Okay? Get more into the habit of writing. I don't care if you're afflicted with reading disorders and shit. Just write short sentences. Just write words down. Come up with your own shorthand, your own code, and write shit down, your own language, so you can write shit down and be like, all right, I can come back to this. Man, you might just be, it might be a cold winter day and you just sitting around sipping on some cognac or some brandy or something, some warm drink or hot chocolate. And you just sitting around, let me break out my fucking notebook real quick and let me go through my fucking archives. And you start going through, like, yo, I got some shit here. This is some good shit. Now you got to do something with it. Because guess what? It's in-house. Nobody knows. That shit's secret and sacred. You have kept that in-house. You didn't type it on a screen. That screen isn't being recorded or screen grabbed by anybody over a network. That shit is all yours.
Look, the whole thing is when you write shit down and you put it in your pocket, it's only for you. So sometimes,
and guess what else? It's more real.
Well, I think what it is, some in this day and age, we look for justification, and you want to run your idea by somebody. You're good enough. You don't need to run it by nobody. You run it by your motherfucking self.
Or nowadays, just run it. Do it.
Period. That's all I got. Shit, man. Do it. Just make sure you're doing it. You're creating this idea. It starts out as your imagination, but it comes into manifestation. It comes into this reality. And saying it or recognizing it or looking at it over and over is going to give you power. It's going to give you legitimacy, but no one else needs to know until you pop out in a new ride. Until you pop out and already done it, because like I said, too many times we look for justification from people, and that shit slows you down, or that shit exposes your idea to the elements. When there's something you should be cherishing, you should be taking care of yourself. You should be fostering it, garnishing it, inception all the way to to college. This is your baby. This idea is yours.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, because really what we're talking about is securing, your IP. And not just that, but when you write something down, you're making something. Now, the power in creating is, it's infinite. That is a gift from the Creator.
That's divine.
That's why these disembodied spirits and, these other type of creatures hate us, because we can create. We were given this gift of creation. Dude, when I put some music in front of me and I start playing it, it liberates. It liberates all the frustration that I have in my life. It liberates all of these whatever that's going on in my head that's unanswered.
When I think what it is that you're completing something. So many times in our life we're not allowed to complete something.
Mm-hmm.
But when you create, I brought it from the two tiny little molecules, the synapses, and I brought it from that realm where it didn't exist into this realm when it does exist. So you have a right and the ability to complete some shit, and you create your own microcosm, your own world, and that's what you're doing. You're being the guide to that idea. You're being the creator to that idea. That's some deep shit. Right. And it's hard to make people understand that's some powerful shit, and that's not what they want you to do. If you're not creating, then you're creating, you're working for somebody else. You're being created. That's backwards.
Okay. When you are a part of somebody else's picture, that's one thing. You're just an extra. But when you're directing and you're the cinematographer and you're
the editor,
the set decorator and all these things, you're bringing all these pieces together, you're making something. So when you make these things, it gives you an immense satisfaction because, I'm using my gifts. I'm getting instant feedback from something that was a thought in my head, and now it's material. And it can be material or immaterial, but there's still a representation. It can be artwork in a digital realm. It can be brushstrokes on a canvas. It can be film, that something shot on film. It can be music that you then share with other people. But you have to use this ability. Now, people have different gifts. Okay, that's fine. But it's good to write down your thoughts from time to time, because it gives you a way to reflect back to yourself, not to anybody else, just to yourself. So you can see, what was going on at the time. You know what I'm saying? It's a snapshot of your thoughts. That's all it is. It's something to weigh in on and check out. But also, with this veil that is lifted and us being allowed to see more and more of this reality that's around us, it's part of your growth. So then, like, you're checking in and you're like, showing things. Duct Tape sends me footage and photographs of these launches that are going into space. That's a veil that is, man, dude, I never expected that, we would be sending each other. Dude, did you think when we were little kids, we'll be sending each other footage of rockets launching into space?
Do you mean technology-wise? Because we've always been sending.
Okay. But here's the thing. Yes. Subject matter. Yes. We've always been future thinkers. You know what I'm saying? We've always been forward thinking about, hey, this is going to be the future and this and that. Despite the suppression, we always knew the future would eventually get here. But the funny thing is, it's a combination of the future from my childhood and the future from, my father's TV watching era.
Like you're your father's future happening now.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we were kids. I saw this TV show where they were sending codes with flashlights, and we had we wrote a whole language of codes. And I'm sending you a code, and you send it back, and he's like, "Hey man, I lost the paper." But you and your little brother was like so amazed, like. He's like, hey, how y'all doing that? Yeah, we sending signals, son. I was from my bedroom when you was on your porch, and we sending signals like over like half a mile away. Shit like that. We was always forward thinking, as in communication is going to be what would make shit work and shit like that. So now when you get here, see, here's the issue when you pull back the veil. There's reality and there's in reality. That's the whole thing. Is we're seeing is in reality. We're seeing
right. So then, okay, what we're looking at is a river. Now, when you go fishing, there's certain times of day where the sun is shining directly onto the water and obscures the view underneath the current.
Yeah.
So,
because reflection, you can't see it.
Exactly. But when that sun angle changes, you can see that fish in the stream. And that's the same thing that's happening now. Is like the direct influence of the sun has changed. And so now we can see the fish in the water.
What we're telling you is when you see reality and you're part of it, but then you see the in reality where it's being done to you. That's the shit I need you to discern and understand. And that's the part that when somebody sees the glitch, that's the in reality. That's somebody who's being placed there to give you some fake information, fake news, to direct you or the river in a certain direction that they want it to go. And that's when it's up to you to like, okay, whether it's my creator, whether it's the voice in my head, or whether it's the listener, that's when you're like, that's some bullshit right there. Maybe I don't need to go to that concert. Maybe I don't need to be listening to that person. Maybe they are casting spells. See, back in the day, that's all you ever heard was when rock music was, they're casting spells.
The satanic panic.
Yeah, here's the deal. Just because you don't know what the words mean, you shouldn't be saying it, because you'll fuck around and cast a spell or put yourself in a trance or fuck around and make yourself less than what you're supposed to be.
Fuck around and find out.
Here's the deal. I'm going to give this last example. Hip-hop music. When hip-hop music was unbridled and the record companies just were signing people, you had the KRS-Ones, you had the more David Banners. Back in the day, you had the Parises, you had all these motherfucking pop. You hear Jadakiss say, we had balance in hip-hop. You had the party music, and then you had the enlightening hip-hop. Fast forward to now, you got drill music, you got all this fucked up shit, but you ain't got no balance to it. And the only motherfuckers making that music are the ones putting themselves out. The David Banners and the KRS-Ones, the ones who are putting themselves out independently. But if you're signed to a label, I guarantee you spin the block. That's all they're talking about. And so when you recognize that, well, why does that matter? Duct tape, what are you saying? What I'm fucking saying is they're manifesting this behavior. What I'm saying is they talked about the prison industrial complex had all these new prisons built, but they had to fill them motherfuckers. They built the motherfucking prisons before they had the fucking crime problem. That's a problem. Well, why are you building these motherfuckers and we ain't got a problem yet? Because you anticipated it or you created the problem. So what I'm saying, real simple, so you understand that sometimes you're being fucked with and you don't realize it, and that you're being guided in a direction that ain't the best for you. And you being scared, or you being panicked, or you not having enough money to pay your bills, or you can't buy your kids school clothes, and you're frantic. Those evil reptilians feed on that shit. These evil motherfuckers feed on that shit. Yeah. Adrenochrome is the only thing these elites be eating. You feel me? And so a lot of times you're being confused on purpose, and they want the results of your confusion. They don't care if you succeed, live, or die. They just want the results from it. You're their sustenance.
The world is changing faster and faster every day, and you have to keep up with discernment. That's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla back.